Maddie, if you see this, please come home. Please be safe. I love you very much. If you have my Maddie, please just let her come home. We just want her home.
What happened the night Madeline Soto never came home? How did an ordinary sleepover on a typical teenage school day turn into an unspeakable tragedy that left an entire community in trauma? The gruesome details will leave you in shock. It was supposed to be just another school day, but by the morning, 13-year-old Madeline Soto would be gone forever. What twisted truth lay beneath the surface? Who was the person behind the unimaginable crime? How did the dots connect back to someone Madeline trusted blindly? Stephen Stern was your everyday Joe. He was dating Jennifer Soto, a single mother who saw him as a dependable partner and a caring figure for her 13-year-old daughter Madeline. But Stefan was hiding a sinister secret. Stefan Stearns. To everyone around him, Stefan Stearns seemed like an ordinary man. Quiet, helpful, he blended in almost too well. To Madeline's mother, Jennifer, he was more than just a boyfriend. He was a protector, someone she trusted with her daughter. But Stefan had a secret, a dark, festering secret. Beneath the surface, he was far from the man they thought they knew. Behind closed doors, his hidden life was spiraling into something sinister. His relationship with Madeline wasn't just wrong, it was horrifying. No one could have guessed the darkness that lingered in his mind. The careful mask he wore fooled them all.
Both Jen Soto and Stephen Stearns being interviewed by detectives.
Madeline Soto wasn't just any 13-year-old. She was bright, full of life, and deeply loved by her mother, Jennifer. Stefan seemed like the perfect partner to Jennifer, a quiet, dependable man who presented himself as caring and trustworthy. At first, he seemed like the stable presence they both needed. But beneath that exterior was a far more sinister reality. Madeline, like any child, trusted Stefan because her mother did. But over time, Stefan's interest in Madeline shifted in unsettling ways. He became more involved in her life than any adult should. He paid her too much attention. He watched her closely. And Madeline, being young and innocent, didn't understand what was happening. As we'll soon uncover, Stefan had sinister intentions in his mind. Jennifer didn't see it either. To her, Stefan was just being caring. But as investigators would later uncover, his behavior was far from innocent. Stefan Stearns was grooming Madeline. He preyed on the trust that Jennifer and Madeline had in him. Slowly, he manipulated situations to be closer to Madeline, to isolate her. He was able to hide his true intentions so well that neither Madeline nor Jennifer saw the danger that was creeping closer each day. Madeline, like any trusting teenager, thought of Stefan as just another adult figure. Her mother trusted him, so why shouldn't she? But slowly, Stefan's interest in Madeline became more intense. He paid her too much attention. He was always watching her, always finding excuses to be near her. Jennifer didn't see it. To her, Stefan was simply being kind and involved, but the true nature of Stern's relationship was revealed on the day Madeline went missing. The morning of February 26th began like any other. But for Jennifer Soto, it would end in horror. Her 13-year-old daughter Madeline had gone to school. At least, that's what she believed. Hours later, panic set in. Madeline wasn't answering her phone, and no one knew where she was. Jennifer's worst fear was becoming real. Unable to make the call herself, a friend of Jennifer dialed 911. "I'm calling on behalf of Madeline's mother," the woman said. "I'm reporting a missing child." The dispatcher asked routine questions about Madeline's appearance and where she was last seen. The woman explained that Madeline had been dropped off at Peace United Methodist Church near Hunters Creek Middle School by her mother's boyfriend, Stephen Stearns. But here's the chilling part. Madeline never made it inside the school. She had vanished. With dispatch units busy and no apparent help, the caller grew restless. In a second 911 call, the same woman's voice carried a deeper sense of urgency. "How long until deputies arrive?" she asked. The panic was rising as the minutes dragged on, and still, there was no sign of Madeline. Deputies were dispatched, but the gut-wrenching wait for answers continued. A third call came in from another woman, also pleading for an update. "How long more do we need to wait? It's a child missing."
Monday morning, we took her to school. We dropped her off close to school, across the street from a church, which is it's right next to the school. She crossed the street and walked to school, what we thought walked to school. My boyfriend who drove her to school drove away at that point. It was seen on video footage that she hung out in the parking lot of the church for a few minutes and then got up and walked towards the school. But she never made it that walk and that was around 9 a.m. when she got up. She never made it to school after that. It's right next to the school. I don't know why she didn't make it. I don't know if something happened on her walk along the way or if she got taken, but she never made it.
And that was the last anyone's seen of her or heard from her?
Yes. I went to pick her up after school, and she wasn't there.
Here's how the search for Madeline Soto began after she was reported missing. While Jennifer was desperately making those 911 calls, believing her daughter was simply missing, Stephen Stearns already knew the truth. Jennifer, completely unaware, had no idea that the man she had welcomed into her home was hiding a dark secret. The panic in those early morning hours on February 26th was palpable. With each passing minute, the fear grew. Madeline Soto had vanished and her mother Jennifer was desperate for help. But one detail stood out. Madeline had left her cell phone at home. For a 13-year-old girl, that was unusual, a sign that something was wrong. When Jennifer learned that Madeline had never made it into school that morning, her fear turned into full-blown panic. And as law enforcement arrived, the reality of the situation started to sink in. The police began by canvassing the area. They visited the Peace United Methodist Church where Madeline was reportedly dropped off by Stephen Stearns, her mother's boyfriend. There was no sign of her. School officials confirmed she never arrived. The investigation quickly shifted from a missing persons report to something far more sinister. Law enforcement turned their attention to Stephen Stearns. In the days following the initial 911 calls, Detective pieced together a disturbing timeline. Witnesses came forward with information that Stearns had been seen driving around at 7:45 a.m. on the morning of Madeline's disappearance, the same time Madeline should have been arriving at school. Even more damning, Stearns was spotted dumping items in a dumpster in the condo complex that day. The items? Madeline's backpack and a school-issued laptop. But the truth was worse than anyone could have imagined. Stearns' true nature was about to be revealed. At this point, the police knew they weren't just dealing with a simple case of a missing child. The evidence suggested something far worse. Madeline had likely been murdered before anyone realized she was missing. As the days dragged on, The police intensified their search, looking for any sign of Madeline, and then on March 1st, their fears were confirmed. Madeline's body was discovered in a grassy rural area of Osceola County. She had been dead for days. According to CBS, body of a missing Florida teen, Madeline Soto, was found. With this heartbreaking discovery, the investigation zeroed in on Stephen Stearns. Stephen had a history of SA, which had been carefully hidden. He had struggled with PTSD and harbored disturbing S desires for years. He used his charm and Jennifer's trust to prey on Madeline, exploiting the family's love for his own sick purposes. He used his relationship with Jennifer as a way to get closer to her daughter, to build her trust. Behind closed doors, he manipulated situations to isolate Madeline, creating a twisted relationship she was too young to understand. He was arrested just 2 days later, facing 60 counts of S battery, molestation, and child pornography, tied to his months of abuse toward Madeline. But despite being taken into custody, Stearns refused to cooperate. He remained silent, offering no answers about what had happened that fateful morning. For law enforcement, it became clear Stephen Stearns had been planning this all along. The 911 calls, the police for help, they came too late. By the time Jennifer realized her daughter was missing, Stearns had already taken her life. From that point forward, the police focused on building a solid case. They recovered the items Stearns had tried to discard and gathered witness testimony about his movements. But the most damning evidence was the timeline that showed Madeline was likely dead inside Stearns' car as he drove around that morning, just hours before the frantic 911 calls began. The police knew they were dealing with a calculated, premeditated crime. Stearns had manipulated Jennifer, used her trust to gain access to Madeline, and on the morning of February 26th, he acted on his darkest impulses. Now law enforcement mission was clear: bring Stephen Stearns to justice for the brutal murder of Madeline Soto. Investigators later revealed that by the time those desperate 911 calls were made, Stephen Stearns had already taken Madeline's life. As the investigation continues, authorities are working to build a solid case against Stearns, ensuring that he faces the full weight of the law for Madeline. Jennifer's heartbreak is unimaginable. Her trust in Stearns had blinded her to the predator living under her roof. Madeline's death wasn't just a tragic accident. It was the result of calculated, ongoing abuse that Stearns had hidden for months. Jennifer would later claim she had no idea. She believed Stefan was trustworthy. But the investigation would reveal that Madeline had been sexually abused by him for months. Stefan had infiltrated their lives so deeply that at times he even shared a bed with both Jennifer and Madeline, a disturbing fact that would later come under public scrutiny. What the investigators uncovered was horrifying, but how much did Jennifer actually know? How much did her mother, Jennifer, really know about the dark secrets that were hidden within her own home? It was revealed that Jennifer, Stefan, and Madeline sometimes shared a bed. Now, this detail has raised some serious questions. How could a mother not sense something was wrong? Could she have really been in the dark about Stearns' intentions? Or was her trust in him blinding her to the dangers her daughter faced? Jennifer's public statement claims she knew nothing. But as we piece together more details, some wonder if she was choosing to look the other way. Was her desire for companionship clouding her judgment, allowing a predator to prey on her daughter right under her nose? The community has its opinions. Some say Jennifer should face consequences, arguing that her blindness or even willful ignorance makes her complicit. Others believe she was simply manipulated, another victim of Stern's calculated lies. But how did no one see the signs? Could this have been prevented? The community's concern became more far-reaching when investigations made progress. Everyone was left in shock and awe. Madeline Soto. New police interviews with Stephen Stearns. Jennifer Soto from hours after teen went missing. This wasn't a random act of violence. According to new court documents, Madeline was strangled. A brutal, deliberate act that took her life. Investigators found her with signs of decomposition on one side of her face, but her socks completely clean. This small detail proves she didn't walk to the place where her body was found. So what really happened? What dark secrets are hiding in this case? And why was Madeline sent to sleep with the man who would ultimately take her life? Madeline's mother, Jennifer Soto, admitted that the night before her daughter disappeared, she sent Madeline to sleep in bed with Stephen Stearns. And the reason? Jennifer wanted a good night's sleep. She told investigators that she never felt comfortable with it, but she did it anyway, a selfish decision that would haunt her forever. The true horror came to light during the autopsy. The medical examiner's report confirmed it. Madeline had been strangled to death. Her hyoid bone, a small but vital bone in the neck, was fractured. This is a classic sign of strangulation, and it painted a grim picture of her final moments. In new documents, Madeline Soto was strangled to death. But there's more. Investigators discovered something even more disturbing. Over 1,500 images and videos on Stern's phone. Horrifying, explicit content that tied him directly to unspeakable acts of abuse. And as if that wasn't enough, they found searches for sevoflurane, an anesthetic used during surgeries. Why would Stearns be looking this up? Investigators believe he had dark plans that went beyond the abuse. Jennifer described Stearns as a master manipulator, and now the whole world can see why. While Stearns awaits trial, having pleaded not guilty to all charges, the evidence against him is overwhelming. He fooled everyone around him, most tragically the woman who loved him and the girl who trusted him. But detailed police interviews suggest that there's more to the story than what catches the eye. Detectives didn't just question Stearns, they also confronted Madeline's mother, Jen Soto. And their conversations left everyone stunned. When detectives showed Jen photos of Stearns allegedly abusing her daughter, her defense of him raised eyebrows. Despite the horrifying evidence, she initially hesitated. Was it a shock or something more? Detectives believed her instinct to protect Stearns was blinding her to the truth. I don't believe a lot of the things you're saying, a detective told Jen Soto. That's not shock. That's your natural instinct to protect him. Jen claimed she wanted Stearns to face the worst punishment possible in jail. But the tension in the room was palpable. Was her guilt clouding her judgment, or did she know more than she was letting on? Meanwhile, in another room, Stephen Stearns was being grilled by detectives, but his response? Silence and one telling question. Should I be talking to a lawyer right now? New police interviews of Stephen Stearns, Jen Soto released. Should I be talking with a lawyer right now? The police pressed Stearns to tell them more, especially after discovering disturbing images and videos on his phone. But Stearns refused to give any real answers. His silence only deepened the mystery. There's one more disturbing possibility investigators explored. Could Madeline have been pregnant before her death? The chilling question was posed during interviews with Jen Soto. Detectives asked if she had noticed her daughter using feminine hygiene products. Jen's response left room for doubt. She hadn't seen any signs of Madeline's menstrual cycle in February. Though no official confirmation has been made, the possibility of Madeline's pregnancy adds another devastating layer to this already horrific case. The new interviews are just one part of this ongoing investigation, but they reveal the horrifying complexity of what happened to Madeline Soto. As more evidence comes to light, the story gets darker. The betrayal runs deeper. The questions become even more urgent. Was this tragedy preventable? And how did Jen Soto not see the signs? Jennifer Soto's behavior, her hesitations, and her defense of Stephen Stearns raised some questions about her involvement. Jennifer's initial defense of Stearns, even in the face of overwhelming evidence, makes it hard to ignore the possibility that she was complicit in some way. Whether it was her desire for companionship or her reluctance to face the truth, something kept her from protecting her daughter when she needed it most. Jennifer herself described Stearns as a master manipulator, someone who had deceived her into trusting him. But that raises the question, if she saw him as manipulative, why didn't she act sooner? Did her guilt, as the detective suggested, stop her from fully cooperating? Or was she blinded by her own need for stability, even if it meant putting her daughter in harm's way? Why, after admitting she felt uncomfortable, would she send her daughter into the arms of a predator? This moment alone makes us question her ability to protect Madeline. Or worse, if she was choosing not to. The interrogation with detectives also revealed that Jennifer tracked her daughter's menstrual cycle, but she admitted not noticing any signs in February. While the pregnancy claim is still unconfirmed, it raises more questions about Jennifer's role in her daughter's life and the abuse that happened under her roof. So where do we stand? Is Jennifer Soto a victim of manipulation? Or was she complicit in her daughter's tragic death? The line between ignorance and complicity is thin. And Jennifer's actions in the days leading up to Madeline's disappearance leave us all questioning her true role in this nightmare. Trust is dangerous when it's given blindly. And Madeline's case shows us that we can't afford to take people at face value when it comes to the safety of our children. Stephen Stearns wasn't a masked villain lurking in the shadows. He was a man who appeared normal, trustworthy, even caring. But beneath that facade was a predator. It's not enough to assume that someone is safe just because they're familiar, whether it's a family member, a friend, or a romantic partner. We have to scrutinize the people we allow close to our children. Stearns manipulated Jennifer Soto's trust, and in doing so, he gained access to Madeline. We cannot let this happen again. Often, people hesitate to raise concerns. Maybe it feels like an overreaction, or maybe there's fear of damaging relationships. But no relationship is worth risking a child's safety. If Jennifer had acted on her discomfort, if someone else had questioned Stearns' closeness to Madeline, this tragedy may have been prevented.